Okay, so hello and welcome back to another Blazor tutorial. In this video we're going to be covering routing. It's going to be a really short video just about how you can inject a navigation manager to navigate between pages in your C# code. So for example, on a button click or on something else happening, right, you can go to a different page. And also how we don't just have static pages, we have pages where the data varies based on the URL. So we could have a single page that has an ID, so it's like page/ID, and then the ID gets used in the page to, for example, display a number. We could go to /page/10, and in the page the text would change to say 10. Now that's just a really simple example we're going to set up, and then in a future video when we set up databases, we can do /page/10, and what it'll do is it can then go search the database for the entry with ID 10, and if it exists we'll put it on the page, for example. So we're going to slowly build up in complexity, but for now we'll keep it really simple. If you ever need to remember how to route in Blazor, like go between pages, come back to this video. It's a really quick video on how to do that. Now let's get into it. But of course, first I've got to thank my patrons. A special thanks to Flow State Games, Average Morning, Art Farrell, Buddha Ray, and Remy Baldwin. If anyone else is able to help support the channel monetarily, the link to my Patreon is down below. If not, there are also links down below to social media, such as Twitch, Twitter, and Discord. If you could help me out by following on any of those, it'd be greatly appreciated. Now let's get to the video. As always, the code and project files and everything will be on my GitHub page, the link's down below. If you go onto my GitHub repositories and go down to Blazor tutorial, here it is, you can get the video code. After I finish this video, I'll update it to be with the code that I've made this video. And today we're going to be doing routing, as I mentioned, so I'm going to link this down below so you can give it a full read, but I'm going to basically shrink this down and just give you the basics and what you need to know. So let's get to the coding. So before we actually do any coding ourselves, we're just going to look at the project so far, because it actually already has some routing. We've got an about button there that takes us to a different URL. We've got these different navbar tabs here, which take us to the different pages. So we already have routing. As you see, when I click on them, it changes the URL and it loads the page for this, and we can do the things. So let's just look at the code for that quickly, and then we can write our own. So if we go to app will show you some default stuff about your app. So when you route, which is when you do a URL to somewhere, when the content is found, so when the page exists that you tried to go to, we do this. We basically have a default layout. Now it uses main layout. If you press F12 on it, it'll take you to the generated file. You want it to go to the actual file. So we go to shared, main layout, here it is. So all the main layout is, it has some base component, which I'm not going to bother looking into. It's just a built-in component. It's just the base for a component, right? It just has some simple stuff already in it. And then we have the nav menu, which is its own component. If it's green, it's a razor component. Here's the nav menu, and here it is, right? So this is the nav menu. It's some HTML with some links, and the links take you to, for example, well, here's the text home counter fetch data, and if you look here, href is the actual string that it searches. So if you have none, it goes back to the home page because that's just the local host / nothing. Okay, and then we have a thing here, which is we can collapse it, whatever. If we go back to the main layout where we're using the navbar, we also have at the top the row with the about thing at the top right. So this will always be shown on every single page, right? Because on certain websites, most websites will have a navbar and this kind of thing, which is the same for all websites. This won't change. And then back over in the app, you see, okay, we always have that if the thing we're going to exists. And if we don't, we still also have the layout view with the main layout. So this always exists regardless of if we do or don't find content. But we also have the paragraph, sorry, there's nothing at this address. So if we were to run it again, and I was to go to a URL that didn't exist, we just get the paragraph saying, sorry, there's nothing at this address. If I just did /hi, that doesn't exist. So we get the sidebar, the navbar, the top, and we just get a string, sorry, there's nothing at this address. Now, obviously, you could put whatever you want there, it's up to you. But the point is that's where this is currently. So if you want to change that, you can do that. Now, if we go back to the startup, the actual routing's already set up for us. If you do the basic template stuff, it's here, use endpoints, use routing, it's all there. So that's fine. All we need to do now is start writing our own code for it. Okay, so let's create our own. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go and copy and paste one of the pages we already have, such as the counter page, and we'll call it routing example. Okay, and I've got into a good habit, I think, of putting page after your page name, because what if you end up, for example, having a class called ticket? We have tickets in our server, we have a ticket class, but then we also have a page to display tickets, so by default we just called it ticket.razor, but then we have to specify in the code if we're on about the ticket page or the ticket model, so instead we just call it page. Now I'm not going to go through and change counter page, error page, you could do that if you wanted to. We're just going to call it routing example page, and then the URL is going to be routing example, right? Now it's non-case sensitive, so you could write this however you wanted. If you wanted to do, you could do capital R, small o, capital U. It's up to you. I personally just go with all lowercase, and I think they do on the website. But you could, if it was easier to read for you, you could obviously do routing example like that. You've just got to keep in mind that the URL, it does not matter if you do upper and lowercase, so you can't have like one page with uppercase this and one page with lowercase this. It would use the same thing. Now, when the code does this and it messes up, all you have to do is just close and reopen the page. That usually happens when you rename it. It just needs to regenerate the file and, just fix some things. It's not perfect yet. Blazor still needs... it's only been out for like 2 or 3 months now, right? It's been out since September. But for this page, we're going to have the counter. Let's just say index, right? And we'll just say index is... So currently this page has a button, and when we click it, increments a count. But I'm going to do something different. I'm going to say, okay, if we go to the actual URL and we do slash squiggly brackets, so inside these braces, what you can actually do is you can write a variable name. So we can call it, for example, the ID. Now, what that means is if it's inside here, it treats it as a variable rather than the actual page. So if I did slash routing example slash anything, it would try and see, well, it would basically set ID to be that thing. But the thing is, ID doesn't exist currently, so let's make it. We want a private, sorry, not a private, we want a parameter. So a parameter can mean multiple things in Blazor. When we come to do components, probably in the next video, when I show you about components and making our own, parameters are used for passing data into components. But in pages, you can use parameters to read the ID from the end of the URL. So if I go parameter public int ID get set, so it's a property, and I just save that, just give it a second, it'll be happy in a second. Now ID will actually be set to here. The problem is we'll get an error if ID isn't an integer, because it'll try and set it and realize it can't do that, or it won't work properly. You can actually add route constraints. I keep wanting to say root, route, it doesn't matter, it depends if you're English, American, whatever. What you can do is you can do colon and then the data type. Now, you can't just write like integer, you have to write int for an integer. Now, if you go to the website that I've linked down below, the routing, there's a table. So like boolean is bool, date time is date time, decimal decimal. It's pretty obvious what they are. But if you want to go in there to check, just to make sure which ones are supported, it's not every data type isn't supported. Only certain ones are, but integers very useful for obviously IDs. And what we want to do here is we want to display the ID, okay? And we just get rid of this function, and we get rid of this button, or at least we just comment out this button now. So to comment out, you can do Control K, Control C. Comments are a bit like different in Blazor. It has to use an at, and then it's asterisk and asterisk at to close it. So we just have a page where the index is, we'll just call it the routing example, okay? What's going to happen is, depending on which integer we pick, it's actually going to change this text for here, okay? So let's go give that a go. All right, I'm on the website, and we haven't got like a navbar for it or anything. Now, we could obviously make like a text input and then a go button, and it would go to that website. But for now, we'll just manually type it in. We just want to do routing example slash, and then an integer, like 15. And what does it do? Well, it goes to the page, we get the header, and then index 15. But then if we put this to be like some other big number, whatever. Actually, I think have I gone over the max int? Yeah, I went over the max int value. Okay, that broke it. If you wanted it to be even longer, you'd have to use like a different data type, such as like a long or a double. But for an integer, it goes up to, I can't remember the actual value, but the point is it works, okay? If they put in the ID, it uses the ID in the page, it's an integer. That's cool. That's most of the video is just showing you like how to use this in a page. It's as simple as you put the thing you want in the page with squiggly brackets and then colon data type. This ID can be anything, right? Just as long as it matches the variable of the parameter, right? So the only thing that needs to happen is that those match. Now, let's add something, just to end this video off. We want to, for example, have the button that, I don't know, we can increment the ID or go to the next one up, for example, right? So let's make a private void go to next index, okay? Go to next index. And what we want to do, well, actually, what would happen is if we could just increase the ID and it would update in the page, but let's actually go to the URL, okay? So we can say this button goes to the next index. And what we want to do is we want to say navigation manager. Now, navigation manager is actually something we don't have access to right now because we need to inject it. Now, dependency injection probably needs its own video. So for now, we're just going to keep it really simple, and all you need to do is you add an inject attribute here, and then you say, public, and then what you want. So I want a navigation manager. We'll call it navigation manager. Get set, just like the other properties. And we can call a function on this, navigation manager dot navigate to, and now you pass in the URL you want to go to. So we want to go to slash routing. We can just copy this, slash routing example, slash, and then for the ID, so let's use a $sign there. For this ID, we want to put it as our current ID plus 1, okay? So we want to go to the next page up, for example, right? This is just a dumb example. Now if I go to setup, I'm pretty sure, startup, sorry, we've got the navigation manager already in here, and if we don't, I might have to set that up. Yeah, so I don't have the navigation manager yet, and let's actually just go give it a go, and I'll show you what happens and how we'll fix it, so I'll be back in a second. Okay, I'm back on the page, so we're going to go to slash routing example, slash 15, for example. There you go. 15, click me. Oh, and it actually does work. And never mind, we don't have to set up the dependency injection. It's done for us for Navigation Manager, apparently. So as you see, when I press this button, what actually happens is it goes to a new page, because it goes to a new URL. And obviously, by going there, it updates the index, because the index in the page is different. So this is obviously just a dumb example, but it works. You see, you go to these different pages, different indexes. You can do whatever you want here, right? I mean, we could just use a string and pass in a word instead, but obviously you can't increment a word like that. But that's fine. Yeah, we don't need to do that in here. I'm pretty sure in here then there's some, maybe routing already does it for us. There'll be something in here that already sets up for us. But essentially, Navigation Manager is something that we need a reference to, but we can't just like make the instance of it in here. We need to be passed it in. So the way you pass in dependencies using a dependency injection framework is you inject it. So you use the inject tag, the thing you want, the name of it, and then it has to be public as far as I'm aware. I've never tried making it private. It makes sense to be public so you can access it to pass it in. Normally, you do dependency injection through constructors in classes, but this is a bit different syntax. There's no constructor for a page like this. You have to just pass it in through here. And then we can access it to call functions. And this is how we get data elsewhere. So like, for example, when we set up a database connection and we need to get access to the database, we have to be passed in the reference to the database. So we do that via dependency injection. But that can be in its own video when we set that up. So no need to worry about that for now. You can feel free to go do your own reading on DI if you want. But this is a really simple example. We've got Navigation Manager injected, ID through the parameter, and we use it to go to a new page, and we display it in the page. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Really simple, really short. Feel free to ask me down below what you want me to do more videos on. I'm also thinking of doing Discord bot videos again, but in C#, because then I'd have more of a reason to do it, more of a motivation to do it. It'd be interesting, and I really like the D# package for Unity. They're like Unity library, sorry, not Unity, Discord. It's really good. There's lots of helpful tags that saves a lot of pointless typing we have to do over and over again in our like TypeScript and JavaScript version. So if you guys want that, let me know down below as well and in the server. But yeah, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe. Apart from that, I'll see you next time.